The streets of Johannesburg were unforgiving at night. Among the shadows of towering buildings, a young homeless boy named Kwame sat near a dimly lit alley, his arms wrapped around his thin frame. His dark brown skin was covered in dust, his thick, unkempt hair matted from months of hardship. His clothes, once a white t-shirt and brown shorts, were now torn and faded. Kwame had been on the streets for nearly a year, surviving on scraps and the kindness of strangers. His sharp, dark eyes darted around, searching for any sign of danger or opportunity. He had learned that in this city, kindness was rare. That was until she appeared. Zainab was the kind of woman who turned heads. A billionaire, business tycoon, and philanthropist, she carried herself like royalty. Her deep ebony skin glowed under the streetlights, and her long, wavy black hair cascaded down her back like a river of silk. She was dressed in an elegant emerald green gown that hugged her curvy figure, paired with gold jewelry that shimmered as she moved. Zainab had just left a charity gala when she noticed Kwame. Something about him, his defiant eyes, his proud yet weary posture, struck a chord in her. "Are you hungry?" she asked, her voice smooth and commanding. Kwame hesitated. People had offered him food before, only to expect something in return. But something about this woman felt different. "A little," he admitted, avoiding eye contact. Without another word, Zainab signaled her driver, a tall, well-built man named Malik. He was also black African, with dark brown skin, sharp cheekbones, and a neatly trimmed beard. Dressed in a crisp black suit, he moved with silent authority as he handed Kwame a bag of warm food. As Kwame devoured the meal, Zainab watched him thoughtfully. "What's your name?" "Kwame," he muttered between bites. She nodded. "Kwame, how would you like to change your life?" He froze, his heart pounding. Was this a cruel joke? Zainab's dark brown eyes softened. "I can help you, if you let me." Kwame looked at her, searching for deceit. But all he saw was sincerity. For the first time in a long while, hope flickered in his chest. Kwame sat nervously in the back seat of a sleek black limousine, his rough hands gripping the edge of the leather seat. He had never been inside a car like this before, smooth, silent, and smelling of expensive cologne. His dark brown skin, still covered in traces of dirt, contrasted sharply with the pristine interior. His tattered clothes felt out of place against the luxury surrounding him. Zainab sat across from him, her deep ebony skin glowing under the soft car lights. She had changed into a silk black dress that draped over her curvy figure, her gold bangles jingling lightly as she adjusted her seat. Her thick, wavy black hair framed her face, and her dark brown eyes studied Kwame with quiet curiosity. Next to Zainab sat Malik, her tall and broad-shouldered driver and personal bodyguard. His neatly trimmed beard accentuated his chiseled features, and his strong arms rested easily on his lap. Though he remained silent, his sharp eyes never stopped scanning the surroundings. Kwame swallowed hard, still unable to believe what was happening. Just hours ago, he had been sitting on the cold pavement, counting the minutes until sunrise. Now, he was in a billionaire's car, heading to an unknown future. "Where are we going?" he finally asked, his voice rough from years of shouting over city noise. Zainab smiled. "Home." The car pulled into a massive estate, the kind of place Kwame had only seen in magazines. A grand mansion stood at the center, surrounded by lush gardens and towering palm trees. Warm golden lights glowed from the windows, giving the house an almost magical appearance. As they stepped out of the car, a woman approached them. She was black African, with smooth dark skin and high cheekbones. Dressed in a crisp white blouse and a long brown skirt, she moved with quiet grace. "This is Amina," Zainab said, placing a hand on the woman's shoulder. "She's my housekeeper. She'll help you get settled." Amina gave Kwame a kind smile. "Come, young man. Let's get you cleaned up." Kwame hesitated. This felt unreal, too good to be true. But as Amina led him inside, past marble floors and towering staircases, he couldn't deny the warmth spreading through his chest. For the first time in years, he felt safe. Kwame stood in front of the large mirror in the guest bathroom, hardly recognizing himself. His dark brown skin, once covered in dust and grime, now glowed after a long, warm bath. His thick, unkempt hair was neatly trimmed, revealing sharp features and deep-set, intelligent eyes. Instead of his tattered rags, he now wore a crisp white shirt and well-fitted black trousers. Amina, the housekeeper, clapped her hands together. Now, this is a young man ready for a fresh start. Her high cheekbones lifted as she smiled, the soft fabric of her brown dress swaying as she moved. Kwame swallowed hard. He had never worn clothes this nice before. He felt like an imposter in them. Zainab, standing by the doorway, studied him with approval. Draped in a golden silk gown, her deep ebony skin radiated against the light, her thick black curls resting elegantly on her shoulders. Her dark brown eyes held something strange, pride. "You clean up well, Kwame," she said with a small smile. "But this is only the beginning." Kwame shifted uncomfortably. "Why are you helping me?" His voice was cautious, unsure. "People don't just do things like this." Zainab stepped closer, her gold earrings glinting under the chandelier. "I wasn't always rich," she said, her voice soft but firm. "I grew up in a small village, barely surviving. Someone gave me a chance when I needed it most. Now, I'm doing the same for you." Kwame's heart pounded. No one had ever cared about him before, not like this. Malik, the towering bodyguard with dark brown skin and a sharp beard, entered the room. Dressed in his usual black suit, he carried himself with quiet authority. "Miss Zainab, the tailor has arrived." "Perfect," Zainab said. "Kwame, if you're going to have a fresh start, you need clothes that fit the man you're becoming." Kwame glanced down at his borrowed outfit, feeling out of place again. "I don't need all this," he murmured. I just don't want to be hungry anymore." Zainab tilted her head. "You're thinking small. You don't need to just survive, Kwame. You deserve to live." Kwame stared at her, the words sinking deep into his soul. For the first time in his life, someone believed in him. Kwame adjusted the sleeves of his new navy blue suit, still struggling to believe the reflection in the mirror was his own. The tailor, a stout black African man named Yusuf, had worked tirelessly to ensure a perfect fit. The fabric was smooth against his dark brown skin, and for the first time in years, he felt like he truly belonged somewhere. Amina, the housekeeper, gave him an approving nod. "You look like a gentleman now," she said, tucking a stray curl beneath her neatly wrapped brown headscarf. Her warm, dark eyes were full of pride. Kwame turned to see Zainab watching him. She was breathtaking as always, wearing a deep red gown that hugged her curvy figure. The gold jewelry around her neck shimmered against her ebony skin, her thick black curls framing her face perfectly. "Are you ready?" she asked. Kwame took a deep breath. "For what?" "For the world to see you," Zainab replied with a teasing smile. He followed her outside, where Malik stood waiting by a gleaming black sports car. The tall bodyguard, dressed in a sharp black suit as usual, held the door open for them. His sharp eyes scanned their surroundings with practiced vigilance. "Where are we going?" Kwame asked hesitantly as he slid into the luxurious vehicle. Zainab's dark brown eyes twinkled. "To a charity gala. The same one where I saw you that night." Kwame's stomach twisted. "I don't belong at a place like that." Zainab turned to him, her gaze serious. "Who told you that?" Kwame hesitated. "People like me." "There's no such thing as people like you," she interrupted. "You're not defined by where you come from, Kwame. You define yourself. Kwame swallowed hard. He had never been given the chance to think that way before. As they arrived at the event, he felt hundreds of eyes turn toward them. Men in crisp suits, women in elegant gowns, all of them black African, all of them successful. The sight was overwhelming. Zainab looped her arm through his. Walk with confidence, she whispered. You're meant to be here. Kwame straightened his posture, taking his first step into a world he had never imagined for himself. The grand ballroom was filled with the scent of expensive perfume and the soft hum of jazz music. A massive chandelier hung from the ceiling, its golden light reflecting off the polished marble floors. Kwame noticed how people stared. Some with curiosity, others with thinly veiled disdain. He could hear whispers. Who is he? Why is she with him? But Zainab held her head high, her confidence unwavering. Ignore them, she whispered, squeezing his arm gently. Malik, ever watchful, leaned in. Miss Zainab, some of your associates would like to speak with you. Zainab nodded. Stay close, Kwame. I won't be long. Kwame suddenly felt exposed as she walked away. He was alone in a room full of people who didn't see him as their equal. Then, a deep voice interrupted his thoughts. You're the boy she picked up from the streets, aren't you? Kwame turned to see a broad-shouldered black African man in an expensive navy blue suit. He was older, with a neatly trimmed beard and piercing dark eyes. Kwame stiffened. Yes. The man smirked. She's wasting her time. You can dress up a stray, but at the end of the day, you'll never truly belong here. Kwame clenched his fists. He wanted to respond, but years of being overlooked, dismissed, and ignored had taught him to stay quiet. Then he remembered Zainab's words. You define yourself. Lifting his chin, he met the man's gaze. I guess we'll see about that. The man raised an eyebrow, surprised by the confidence in Kwame's voice. And for the first time, Kwame felt something stir deep inside him, pride. The gala sparkled with wealth and prestige. The chandeliers glowed like captured starlight, casting a warm golden hue over the elegantly dressed guests. The air buzzed with laughter, clinking glasses, and conversations in rich, melodic tones. Kwame walked beside Zainab, his heart pounding against his chest. He felt every pair of eyes on him, some curious, others judgmental. His tailored navy blue suit fit him perfectly, but deep inside, he still felt like the homeless boy from the streets. Zainab, however, was unfazed. She glided across the marble floor with effortless grace, her red gown hugging her curvy figure, her ebony skin radiant under the lights. Her thick black curls bounced as she turned to smile at him. Relax, Kwame, she whispered. You belong here. Across the room, a group of men whispered among themselves. One of them, a tall, broad-shouldered black African man in a royal blue suit, smirked. Who's the boy? He muttered to his companions. That's Kwame, Malik, the ever-watchful bodyguard, said as he stepped forward. His dark brown skin gleamed under the lights, his neatly trimmed beard giving him an air of silent authority. Miss Zainab brought him in. The man chuckled. And now he walks among the elite? Before Malik could respond, Zainab turned, her dark brown eyes piercing. Yes, he does, she said, her voice commanding the room. And soon, the world will know his name. Kwame's chest tightened. He had never had anyone defend him like that. He glanced at Zainab, admiration burning in his heart. As the night continued, he found himself drawn to her. Not just for her kindness, but for her strength, her confidence, her vision. She had given him more than a second chance, she had given him a future. Later that evening, as they stood on the balcony overlooking the city, Zainab turned to him. How do you feel? She asked. Kwame looked at her, truly looked at her. The way the moonlight danced on her ebony skin, the fire in her dark brown eyes, the warmth of her smile. "Like I'm finally awake," he whispered. Zainab smiled. "Good. Because this is just the beginning." Kwame exhaled, looking down at the city lights. "I don't know where this road leads, Zainab. But I know I want to walk it." Zainab reached for his hand, her fingers warm against his. "Then walk it with me." Kwame's heart pounded. He had nothing to offer her. No riches. No status. And yet, she had chosen him. As the wind brushed against them, something unspoken passed between them, a connection that neither of them could deny. Kwame was no longer just a homeless boy. He was a man with a future. And maybe, just maybe, a man in love.